Hey folks, hope everybody's doing well. Today I am going to make a quick video about how to deal with gaslighting from doctors when you have chronic illness. Over the years of being a chronic health patient and also just life in general, 7 years in foster care, I've learned that it's super important to advocate for myself. Those of us in the chronic illness community know all too well how it feels when a doctor either kind of hints or straight up says that what we're dealing with is in our head, that we should see a psychiatrist, implies that, it's stress, or that just like everything is fine. All your test results are normal. We know how that's like and how that does not line up with the very real physical symptoms that we're experiencing. And so when a doctor essentially is gaslighting us, not taking us seriously, the first thing that I would just say is just to express that. We can't expect anybody to read our minds, and we do have a right to stand up for ourselves. So we should say, "Doc, it makes me feel invalidated when you say ... Make sure you keep it as an I statement. I feel invalidated when you say that, so that they don't, it kind of keeps defensiveness down, and just restate what they said, because sometimes, that's all it takes to realize that, oh, that may have come off the wrong way, or, yeah, I see how maybe I've jumped to some conclusions here. So at that point, hopefully people will kind of switch up, but a doctor may try to respond and say, well, there's no literature that suggests that this is da-da-da, or, in my experience, patients who have this tend to be dealing with anxiety or something along those lines. I would just say, are you aware of the research on MCS or, whatever other condition you're dealing with? And at that point, I think it's really helpful to have a couple recent studies that have been done on the issue, tons with MCS, and basically just state matter-of-factly, don't like start preaching, don't go on a whole thing, but just say this study found that, this was abnormal in people with this condition. Sometimes it can help to sort of bring up another example of a condition that wasn't taken seriously. You can say, well, fibromyalgia for many years was, considered psychosomatic, but now it's been proven that there's, multiple abnormalities in patients that are experiencing the condition. And at that point, if you still aren't making any headway, and it's important to stay calm and collected, but just say, I've lived in this body for X amount of years and I'm capable of discerning when something's wrong. I can tell you that certain triggers consistently cause certain symptoms. Or if you have another chronic illness, just explain what you're experiencing, what you're feeling, how it affects you. And at this point, if you have had any test results that basically show that you have some sort of abnormality going on, you can bring these things up. But also bear in mind that when it comes to a lot of chronic conditions, there are literally hundreds of different markers that are involved that can be elevated or low in the body. And a lot of the standard tests only test for, a couple dozen of them at best. And so just because your testing is coming up normal, make sure to bear in mind that your suffering is real and your suffering is valid. So even if you don't have anything to really prove it, it really doesn't matter, because the fact is, you have lived in your body for your whole life and you know if something's going wrong. So I know it can be kind of intimidating to speak to somebody who sees themselves as an authority on health. And doctors do have a lot of training, but the training doesn't keep up with research, and there's a lot of blind spots, unfortunately, with a lot of chronic illnesses. So it's important to just stay calm, centered, and firm in what we're communicating. If after expressing that you're, fully capable of recognizing when something's wrong, you're still not getting anywhere, I would go on and say, it's one thing to disagree with me, but I feel like you're not even listening to the information I'm trying to convey. I understand that you have a lot of experience and you've dealt with a lot of different people, but I feel like you're jumping to conclusions and that you have some preconceived notions about my condition, and I would really appreciate it if you would give me the opportunity to share my experience. At this point, Hopefully the doctor is going to be listening. It's one of those things that when people come in with a confident attitude and stand strong in their truth, that actually has an effect on people, and it encourages them to listen. You know, a lot of times defensiveness will essentially confirm to the person, oh, this person's getting angry at me, that means I must be touching a nerve, that I must be right, that this is in their head. But if you're just standing strong and kindly expressing, but firmly expressing, you know, your truth, then that can have an effect. And at this point, if things haven't changed, they probably won't. And so I think it's completely fair to say, respectfully, I feel like I'm being gaslit. Stick with the I statements, but be very honest about how you're feeling. So if the doctor continues to be defensive or condescending, you can use your autonomy to leave. And as you're leaving, kindly, calmly, but firmly state while you're leaving, I was trying to express what I am dealing with, and I don't feel that you are listening to me or taking me seriously. People come to you because they're suffering, and it's hurtful not to be taken seriously. And I encourage you to listen to the experience of those who are coming in to see you. And at that point, you can just leave. So it can be very hurtful to not be heard and taken seriously, but we shouldn't beg for anybody's understanding or acceptance. Yes, it's certainly hurtful and frustrating when somebody's not taking us seriously, but we don't need a doctor's validation. We know that our suffering is valid, and we know that we are worthy of our suffering, and we don't need anybody to confirm that to us. A lot of us have childhood trauma about not being seen or heard, and these types of situations can kind of bring up that kind of feeling, and that's normal. One of the ways to kind of overcome that is to practice just standing strong in our truth and giving ourselves that validation. But it's completely normal to feel sad, angry, hurt, abandoned when we do get gaslit, especially by somebody who is supposed to be in the profession of healing. So it is not, weak or needy to want to be heard. That is completely natural. And in fact, there is research that's showing that not being seen or heard in childhood is as harmful as physical and emotional abuse. It's very difficult, when we're not getting taken seriously. But the fact is, there are people out there, both, in our daily lives and medical professionals, who are ready to listen. It can be hard to find them, but we should focus on those folks who are listening and not focus on the negative, because there's always going to be those who doubt us, who gaslight us, who don't take us seriously. And it's all about where we put our attention and focus. So we should focus on being grateful for those who hear us and allow them to help us on our healing journey. So I hope that this has been helpful for y'all. I've personally experienced medical gaslighting, and it's very unpleasant. The best thing we can do, like I said, is stay firm in our belief, because if we don't get defensive, at some point along the line, it might force those people who weren't taking us seriously to look at themselves and reflect on what they said. At the end of the day, people are going to think what they're going to think, but this is great practice in standing in your truth, which really can be exhilarating, because we're so used to sort of just deferring to authority, but the fact is we're the authority on our health, right? We're the ones that live it every day. And so whether you're dealing with, a medical professional or just a person in your everyday life, you kindly but firmly state your position. And if they aren't going to listen, you can walk away. That person doesn't have to be in your life. That's the most powerful thing you can do. This has been the Canary Uncaged. Hope y'all have a good day. Peace.